On the surface, the Eagles looked like the perfect band. Smooth harmonies, laid-back melodies, and that golden California glow that made listeners dream of endless highways and sunsets. But behind that sun-soaked image was a very different reality. One filled with cutthroat rivalries, constant tension and chaos they could barely control. Their music sounded like peace, but their lives were a storm. Few bands sounded so soft while living so recklessly. The Eagles' story isn't just one of musical success, it's a saga of bruised egos, bitter lawsuits, and enough exits to rival a full-blown soap opera. Their rise to fame was fast, wild, and littered with broken friendships, shifting alliances, and backstage wars. And at the heart of it all stood Don Henley and Glenn Frey, the two alpha leaders whose partnership walked a fine line between camaraderie and codependence, creating a pressure cooker where brilliance and dysfunction thrived. Frey, who proudly called himself the band's architect, had a vision that bordered on dictatorship. "This is not a democracy," he'd tell the others. "I'm the leader." Henley was quieter, but just as controlling. Together, they defined the Eagles' sound and direction, but their drive pushed nearly everyone else away. The fate of the band, for better or worse, was always in their hands. And what a ride it was! When the Eagles formed in 1971, everything seemed perfectly in sync. The original lineup had Henley Frey, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner. Four gifted musicians united by their love of rock and country, with a natural talent for crafting unforgettable songs. Leadon, a virtuoso guitarist, brought a deep respect for country music, shaping the early albums with rootsy charm. Meisner, a shy bassist with a haunting falsetto voice, helped define some of the band's biggest hits. For a brief time, it looked like magic, but the cracks started almost immediately. Frey, a notorious perfectionist, had a very clear idea of what the Eagles should be, and that didn't include compromising for anyone. Whenever they played a rock song, Frey took the lead. When it was country, Bernie handled vocals. That division didn't sit well with Frey. "I was supposed to be the lead guitarist, and I wasn't a country guy at all." He later explained, "I always felt we needed a third guitarist. I saw the band doing everything, rock, country, ballads, anything." But not everyone shared that vision. Leadon especially clashed with Frey. His roots in country music clashed with Frey's hunger for arena-level success. Frey wanted stardom. Leadon wanted authenticity. The tension simmered for years, mostly through passive-aggressive jabs, until it finally erupted in one of the most infamous rock moments of the 70s. Midway through the decade, Leadon had had enough of the pressure, the rehearsals, and Frey's relentless drive. One day after a band meeting, he walked up to Frey, calmly poured a beer over his head, and told him, "You need to chill, man." It was a moment both hilarious and tragic. And of course, Frey didn't take it well. Leadon left the band not long after, replaced by the rowdier Joe Walsh. His exit was dramatic, but in the Eagles universe, it was only the beginning. If Leadon's departure was simmering tension, Meisner's was a full-on explosion. Meisner, the soft-spoken co-founder with the iconic high notes of "Take It to the Limit," felt more and more miserable as the band grew louder and more aggressive. He was an introvert, often overshadowed by the intense personalities of Henley and Frey. Randy never knew how big he really was. He wasn't an alpha. He hated confrontation, one bandmate recalled, and that became a problem because "Take It to the Limit" became a crowd favorite. The song's climactic high note thrilled fans, but terrified Meisner every single night. He dreaded hitting it, afraid he'd miss in front of thousands. Frey, however, had no sympathy. "If you're not ready, you shouldn't be here," he snapped. They got tired of it and eventually told him, "Then don't sing it, why don't you just leave?" The breaking point came in 1977 during the massive Hotel California tour. One night, Meisner refused to sing the song, citing exhaustion. Frey lost it. They argued violently backstage. Frey threatened to replace him on the spot. That was Glenn Meisner later said, "It was his way or no way." Not long after that night, Meisner walked away from the Eagles, leaving behind a legacy of stunning harmonies and quiet heartbreak. But the band's next implosion would be even messier, and it was coming fast. Musical success, bruised egos, lawsuits, soap opera. Don Henley, Glenn Frey, partnership, camaraderie, dysfunction. Eagles, original lineup, talented musicians, unforgettable songs. Frey, perfectionist. Idea of Eagles, lead guitarist. Leadon, country music, Frey, tension. Leadon, pressure, band meeting, beer over his head. Meisner, explosion, miserable, aggressive band. Take it to the limit, high note, terrified. Breaking point, Hotel California arguments. Don Felder's fall from grace wasn't just dramatic, it was vicious. Felder joined the band in 1974, bringing with him serious guitar chops and a key role in shaping their biggest hit Hotel California. But from the beginning, he clashed with the power duo of Frey and Henley. Felder saw their dominance as arrogant. Frey and Henley saw Felder as disloyal. The breaking point came during the recording of Victim of Love. Felder had recorded vocals for the track, but while he was out of the studio, Henley and Frey secretly replaced his vocals with Henley's. When Felder returned, the decision was already made. He felt betrayed but said nothing at the time, letting the bitterness build. What came next would turn into one of the most awkward and hostile moments in rock history. Years later, at a charity concert for Senator Alan Cranston, the resentment finally exploded. After Cranston thanked the band for playing, Felder muttered sarcastically, "You're welcome, Senator Frey lost it. I didn't care about politics. I didn't know who Alan Cranston was," he later recalled, "but I was furious." As the band walked on stage, Frey was seething. "I wanted to kill him," he admitted. They smiled through clenched teeth while performing Best of My Love, but under the surface the hatred boiled. "We were up there singing about love," Frey later joked, "but in my head I was thinking, I'm gonna destroy you." Behind the scenes it got worse. Frey and Felder exchanged brutal words and open threats. "I've been paying you for 7 years and I'm gonna kick your ass," one of them shouted. There's even audio recordings of their meltdown on stage. That night ended with Felder smashing his guitar and storming into a limo. He left before the show ended, and with that, the Eagles collapsed completely. By 1980, it was over. A decade of chart-topping hits and musical perfection ended in chaos and rage. But as dramatic as the breakup was, it wasn't the end of their story. In true Eagles fashion, even their comeback was laced with tension. In 1994, the band reunited for their Hell Freezes Over tour, a nod to Frey's old comment that they'd get back together when hell froze over. The tour was a massive success, but the old wounds had never really healed. Felder rejoined, but friction returned almost immediately. This time, it wasn't about vocals or egos, it was money. "When I first joined the band, we all owned Eagles. Limited Felder explained, we split profits equally. But when we came back, Don and Glenn wanted a bigger share. We agreed to do it for 60 shows and then renegotiate. But the renegotiation never happened. I kept asking every couple years, and the answer was always no. The bitterness boiled until 2001, when Felder received a legal notice he was being fired again. The lawsuits followed, and the band was dragged through court once more. Felder later described it all as a nightmare. But with the Eagles, that was just par for the course. Then came the final blow in 2016.